Welcome to Ask Angela, relationship advice for love after trauma. I'm Angela Amias, here to help you navigate intimate relationships as I answer real questions about love, loss, and everything in between. This is where we untangle old patterns that keep us stuck and discover new possibilities for connection. Relationships after trauma need a different kind of wisdom, and I'm so glad you're here. Hey there. Welcome to this very first episode of Ask Angela. And in this episode, I'm going to be answering Rob's question. So Rob asks, how do I deal with my own trauma when my partner also has conflicting trauma? My girlfriend of almost a year wants to move in as she believes that it will deepen our relationship. My last partner died unexpectedly, and I have just started to enjoy my life as a single person. How do I explain that I don't want to move in without upsetting her expectations? How do I positively explain trauma to someone else when I don't really want to talk about it? Dear Rob, in my experience, it seems like most of us end up being drawn to a partner who has conflicting trauma. How this happens is a mystery to me because it's not like we know when we're starting a relationship and we're falling in love that our new partner's trauma is eventually going to interact with our own in troublesome ways. We just feel a spark, and then we feel a connection. And by the time we realize that there's an issue, well, we're already in it. At this point in my life, having experienced this myself and also having traveled this road with hundreds of individuals and couples, I no longer think that the dynamic that you're describing, where your trauma interacts with your partner's, is accidental or bad luck. I think it's actually an invitation to healing. Healing the old hurts that we've been carrying around, often for a long time. In other words, what would change for you if you looked at your partner's trauma and how it conflicts with yours as though it's exactly the medicine you need in order to heal? What would happen if every time her trauma triggers yours, you greeted whatever is coming up in you and in her as something to be welcomed with the intention of healing and being able to let it go? Now, I know I'm making this sound simple. It's not, but it is possible. For the second part of your question, I want to begin by saying that I'm deeply sorry for your loss. The fact that you have moved through your shock and grief to the point at which you are enjoying your life as a single person, it's a testament to your resilience. And at the same time, I can understand your reluctance to share with your girlfriend that you're not where she's at. You're not ready to move in together. So if your question is, how do I explain this to her? I would say you could explain it just as you did in this question. I hope that your girlfriend would care about what feels good to you in your relationship, because that's really important. But when you ask, how do I explain this to her without upsetting her expectations? I don't think there's a way to say it that magically takes away her feelings about it. She wants to move in with you. It's natural that she would be disappointed and sad that this isn't something that you want too, or at least right now. An important part of intimate relationships is learning how to tolerate our own disappointment when our partner wants something different than we want. And another important part of intimate relationships is learning how to tolerate our partner's disappointment. Understanding that hard feelings, including sadness and disappointment and anger, are all a part of a healthy relationship does make it easier to cope with times when hard feelings arise. So my encouragement to you is to be honest with your girlfriend, and then to see if you can be present with her feelings as they come up in response to what you've shared. Remember that you haven't done anything wrong to cause her to feel disappointed. And also remember that she hasn't done anything wrong to feel disappointed. Even if you aren't moving in together, you can still move through this experience together in ways that help each of you to grow individually and also to grow in your relationship. Your last question is a bit trickier to answer. You ask, how do I positively explain trauma to someone else when I don't really want to talk about it? In some ways, how you explain it depends on who you're talking with. If you're talking with a coworker, for example, and you really don't want to go into it, you can just say something like, I've been through some hard things in my life. It's really not something that I like to go into in detail. And then you can change the subject to talk about something else. And most people will respect these kinds of boundaries. If it's in a more intimate relationship, this becomes trickier because your past trauma is inevitably going to come up in your relationship. And this means that having a healthy, happy relationship requires being able to talk about hard things from your past. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to talk about it at the drop of a hat, but it does mean that you'll need to set aside time to think about what it is that you want to share about your past. And in that way, talking about past trauma can end up becoming an experience that deepens the trust and intimacy in your relationship. Another thing to consider here is that trauma will always come out in a long-term romantic relationship somehow. It's far better if it can be thoughtfully processed rather than being expressed through behaviors like shutting down or withdrawing or explosive arguments that end with both people feeling hurt and misunderstood. When difficult conversations are approached directly, couples often feel like they've grown closer as a result, even if the outcome of a particular decision, like moving in together, doesn't go the way they wish it would have. And on that note, I'm wishing you, Rob, the very best as you navigate your relationship and your healing. And on that note, for you listeners, thanks for tuning in. That's it for this episode of Ask Angela, relationship advice for love after trauma. If something in this episode resonated with you, come join the conversation at askangela.co. And if you'd like to submit a question of your own to be considered for a future episode, you can also do that at askangela.co. I'll be back soon with another episode, and until then, lots of love.